Hello and welcome to Comic Island. My name is Arden, and today we're talking about X-Force number 11. So, this is a fun book overall, and it's an interesting one. I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. It's written by Benjamin Percy. Um, Bez- Bazaldua does the artwork, Guru EFX does coloring, and Joe Caramagna does the lettering. I was pretty excited about this because Ben Percy did the Wolverine series, and the cover features Colossus going up against Omega Red. It's got the Path to X swords on the cover, suggesting this book is going to kind of lead us in a little bit to what we can sort of expect for out of X swords, and that's kind of cool. So I was pretty excited about this one. And there are some pretty cool things. We start with the a few characters examining some dead Russianish soldiers that have all been genetically modified and engineered, and tiny versions of them emerge out of one of the or a tiny version emerges out of one of the corpses, and outright kills Cecilia Reyes, alarming both Beast and Sage. They kind of run off to go after it, not realizing that little versions are emerging out of all the soldiers and setting up a little bit of chaos to come in this issue. Meanwhile, Domino's kind of approaching Colossus, and they're kind of talking about how Colossus is going to be needed going up against Russia and all this stuff, but he really just wants to stick to farming at the moment. Though soon enough, there is an attack through one of the gates, and Colossus charges through, only to see the X-Men battling against lots of tiny little soldier creatures. Alejandro says, I didn't like how cold Sage was about Cecilia's death. She could have summoned healer triage to help her. Also, her powers should have protected her. I just figure, it's a problem easily solved at this point, and they kind of had bigger concerns at the moment. It's interesting they kind of have that calculus now. So while this is unfolding, one of the little soldiers runs off and grabs a sword. We will later learn a little more about that. The battle continues on, and Colossus kind of gets involved, helps out Beast and Domino. They have a nice little exchange. Meanwhile, Quentin Quire has a little dalliance with one of the Stepford Cuckoos, and she explains that she wants to keep it secret because she wants to have him all to herself while she shares everything with her sisters. It's a sweet little moment, but then Quentin gets stabbed because he dies again, and he gets pushed through a portal where this figure takes what he calls the Cerebro sword, and that's where we leave things. Alejandra saying she is Beast, X, and Sage's friend, and they barely reacted. Well, I mean, they were alarmed. Beast was stabbed, and then they ran off. I get what you're saying, but it's not like, she's gone for good or anything like that. And she probably has priority resurrection status. So, regardless, yeah, it's a pretty... Gigolio says Colossus comes across feeble sometimes. I will say this. We're going to be reviewing 2 X-Men books. And, I'm going to go with Marauders after this one. And I think Marauders is a lot stronger. I was kind of looking for more meaningful setup with X's swords, but really didn't get a lot of that. I was hoping for this to cross over more in an interesting way with the content from the Wolverine series, and we definitely didn't get really anything from that. And overall, I would say this is very much a filler issue, when I reviewed Giant Size Magneto #1. I don't really think I'd recommend this one given what happens in it, although I do have to say the artist did do a pretty great job. There's a lot of excellent shots, even with Colossus farming, him transforming. A lot of the text is very interesting, written from the perspective of what I believe is one of the recruited Russian mutants, but I could be wrong. Uh, and on the whole, I'm curious to see where things go from here. But I don't think I'd recommend this one, and it's also probably one of the weakest X Force issues so far. So I'm not super convinced about all of that. Alejandro's saying Slipstream from Extreme X-Men and Abigail Brand from Sword make a cameo in the battle. That's pretty cool. I didn't even see that. It's a very chaotic battle, and I quite like that moment. Um, Even just the tiny little soldier growths are quite fun. Um, but that's about it. Like aside from some decent artwork and fun moments, there isn't a ton to this book, and in comparison, I found Marauders far more significant and suggests some more interesting content out of X of Swords. That being said, both of these books and a few others, including notably one of the Empire books, have this little insert previewing X of Swords and a few other things. I I will say this book does kind of, along with Marauders, give me a sense of where things are coming, uh, going from here in terms of like how these chapters are going to work in X of Swords. I really feel like it is very going to be very series contingent, even if some things are going to cross over. And I don't feel like you're going to be super obligated to read every single one of these issues. Uh, Gigolio is saying, I miss Comic Island full stories. Yeah, we still do stuff like that sometimes. We're just a little busy with the pandemic and everything. um, and they promised some interesting issues. Excalibur talks about how Apocalypse prepares the ritual he's waited on for eons, and there's also a cool short shot of Apocalypse for and the ad for X of Swords creation, which I think is like the first chapter. Well, oh yeah, the first chapter outside of a couple of more Prelude books coming out, I guess, next week or, in September, um, that feature Apocalypse and kind of keep me interested. It's kind of cool that Apocalypse is just like a major character in all of this going forward. Um, X-Men number 12 shows that what looks like one of the characters from way back in like Time Runs Out era and all those growths and stuff from like on Mars, I think, uh, and some other interesting stuff going on. Those X-Men books are always just a bit of a wild ride. X Factor number 4 depicts some mysterious character resurrecting, and that kind of looks cool. The 5 are standing in front of that. And I'm very curious what kind of character that could be, given how many X-Men have shown up so far. And that's about it out of those inserts. But I'm still at least optimistic enough about X of Swords. The X-Men books can be kind of hit or miss these days, but when they do hit, they hit pretty hard and have some pretty cool content. Thanks for joining us in stream, Demon Lord. So, yeah, overall, this book is a little weak. I do still really love the overall aesthetic of like Krakoa, all these ideas and that sort of thing. But this book is very easily skippable if you're looking for big clues about like what's going to happen in terms of X of Swords. There isn't a lot of that here. If you're looking for any major new content in the world of the Wolverine series or X-Force itself, there isn't a lot here either. And that's a little disappointing. But it does happen with these X-Force books, and sometimes that really comes down to them just taking their time and having so many books that they can set up things like that. And these things will pay off later. Magneto's book was all about him buying an island, and while that doesn't seem to have much of a purpose yet or now, I'm sure it'll mean something one day, and that is curious. Same thing with Nightcrawler's book, which is kind of about him starting a religion. It's not a like overly offensive book or anything like that, or like, and I mean that in terms of just like it's filler, but it's not egregious filler. But maybe there's going to be some more out of that one day. I'm curious to see what they're going to do with all of this and Colossus's character feels like he's in a very interesting position in all of this, given how Russia seems to be a huge part of Exoswords going forward. And that little bit of knowledge and revelation is an interesting thing to come out of this book if you happen to enjoy it. I can understand why for sure. And it wasn't terrible. There's just more significant stuff out there. So I think we'll leave it there. Thanks for everyone who joined us live here in chat. And next up, I'm going to be reviewing Marauders, the number 11. And yeah, I'll speak a little more about the complete stories and stuff like that. We still do them from time to time, but the last few weeks or so, I've been a little waylaid, and these live reviews have been a nice little bridge of content and a way to kind of keep up with comics and stuff like that without having to abandon regular content entirely. So there is other stuff I'm working on and that sort of thing. I think these live reviews will actually help balance that out to a degree, and I'm looking forward to that stuff too. So stay tuned for other content. It's not just going to be like live reviews from here on out. I just really haven't been in the position to be making more stuff in the last couple of weeks, and Joey's been going busy with other stuff as well, so we're each just kind of doing the best we can, and I'm sure you all understand that, because that's all anyone can really ask of us. So thanks guys, and we'll see you next time here on Comic Island.